That isn't uncommon. That isn't a fantasy, because it happens. It happens pretty much every day.
Do you think when a writer reaches a certain level, they no longer need to work on craft?
No. No. That you got to remain teachable as a writer. It's I think it's extraordinarily important. You know, you always have to be willing to learn, and I think that writers tend to give off this air that they're like poor man intellectuals. I don't think they really are. I think that they have to continually be in a process in which they are allowing themselves to be vulnerable and open to new things. I think they do a good act at seeming to be having a wide array of knowledge. There's the writers actually do talk about this. There's a lecture that incidentally Tony Gilroy gives, where he basically talks about how writers have this amazing capacity to know a little bit about so many various subject matters, but never an extensive amount about one thing. You know, we are, I think, in a sense, you know, dilettantes by nature. You know, in other words, yes, we have to be open. You know, we can't. You know, there's no. So you always gotta be practicing. You always have to be honing your work. You're always willing to learn from somebody else. I learned so much from other writers. I love to listen to other writers talk about how they do things and certain techniques and ideas that they apply. I think any true writer is a curiosity junkie. It's just that they just need to keep getting more information, you know, about whatever it is. How's this work, or how does that, you know? That's interesting, you know. Even if it just flies in one ear and then out the other later, you know. We are curiosity junkies, so.
That's fascinating. What is a poor man or poor woman's intellectual? What is that? Well, I like that. I might come under that category.
Well, what I mean by that is that I think that writers do a good job of sounding good, of sounding like they know what they're talking about. I think there's a kind of sometimes a kind of intellectual arrogance some writers can have, but I don't think by nature being a writer is a prerequisite or any kind of standard for your intellectual capacity whatsoever. Just because you have a large vocabulary doesn't make you a professor. Often I do believe others get that confused, including the writers themselves.
So we believe our own hype.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe jack of all trades,
see,
master
there you go. There you go. You just explained it in terms that are far more simpler than I just did. Hence, explaining what I was. No, there you have it.
Well, I think I'm further down on the scale. I haven't mastered total total intellectual. But what I'm curious is of how can we tell if we're not teachable? You talked about being teachable, and that's something that we never stop, getting to that point where you've never mastered the craft. But how do we know? How can we check ourselves?
That's easy. You just got to listen. That's it. That's it. If you aren't spending enough time listening, it's pretty easy. That's how I think that basically you have to check yourself if you're teachable. You got to listen to people. You have to listen to what others are doing, and if it jibes with you, that's cool. If it doesn't, that's fine. You can go and do your own thing, but it doesn't mean that you need to block it out or you have to discount it, because obviously it works for them. And you don't have to hold any judgment over it either.
You think there are times when we become unteachable and then we kind of vacillate back to being teachable, and it's like this battle?
I think that that's a larger life question, and that comes with a bit of wisdom as a writer. If you're a young writer, you achieve a modicum of success, you may start to believe that you're beyond any kind of growth, or that you can't develop any further at your craft, and then you might turn around and go, "Oh no, I was absolutely wrong." It's like I do have more to learn. So I don't think that that's just a straight writer inquiry. I think that's a larger question. It goes towards life.
And one last life question, and that is, do you think having early success is a curse?
These are deep philosophical areas you're getting into.
That's my own believing my own hype. So. But I am curious.
I don't know, because I wouldn't know the experience of.
Me neither.
But I think that maybe I've heard some writers suggest that they feel that they were stifled because they received early success. I have experience with writers, and I've known writers in intimate ways that I know that they've had issues with success, because it's a very it's a seismic thing to occur, and often you might get confused and attribute it to something that is beyond even the product that you put out there. And if you do that, then you can lose your way, at the thing that you love to do the most. Or if that is writing, then you could maybe lose a little time, writing the kind of things that you want to write, and developing the kind of projects you want to work on. But yeah, I've heard of such a thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of the scenes I love in the movie End of the Tour, I believe, about David Foster Wallace and the Rolling Stone journalist that comes to his house in Illinois and interviews him for a week.
No, I've never seen that.
Oh, it's so good. And I know it got a lot of criticism. I loved it. I know there were people that had their criticisms of it, but the David Foster Wallace character says, "I cherish my regular guyness." That's something I really cherish. And I'm just assuming that he meant, sort of like not believing the hype. You know, he was this young writer, he was 24, I believe, when Infinite Jest came out, and just making sure that he cherished that regular part of himself. Again, I'm projecting onto that, but I just love that scene because, you know, here's this young journalist played by Jesse Eisenberg that's coming to interview him and pick him apart and find out what makes him tick, and just, you know, the two bond as friends. And it's reminding me of that when you talked about that. So
I have to see that now.
yeah, I loved it. I mean, there's a lot of sad parts to it, but it's based on a real interview that a journalist did with him. Keeping with this subject, the writer who lands success with the first screenplay is a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we still think this is different for us individually?
What do you mean?
Well, so many people think it's going to be different for me.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna. This is different. I know other people took them 15 years to get this one film made, but they haven't seen my work yet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. It's a funny thing when people approach it that way. To this day, I find it not only cautionary, but I kind of find it tragic that a lot of people come to Hollywood, or just in general, come here with this hope, this dream that they can do this one thing, and I think that the trend has been for the last 30 years about that you can write this knockout one-time screenplay, get it to the right person, and somehow, magically, you will become a star screenwriter. I think that a part of that has to do with the celebrity that has been attached to the screenwriting profession recently. Well, when I say recently, I mean the last 30 years. It wasn't like that always. It was a very behind the scenes profession, and now it has this heightened patina of notoriety that people aspire to. It's like, you know, people wanted to come to you know, or go to Hollywood in the '60s so they could become, you know, lead guitarist for some band. Right. You know, it's the same elusive objective.
You know, this is so gruesome, but you just triggered this memory of when I first came to LA. One of the first things I saw was a girl that had jumped from her balcony. And we may cut this, but her body was covered and the neighbors were all watching. Mm-hmm. This was in Hollywood, and it was like a 4-story balcony. And I never forgot that image because I always wondered, who was she? Why did she jump? Mm-hmm. She was living in this nice apartment, much nicer than the place I lived in, but what would prompt her? And I guess just a reminder of that, and being so young coming here and seeing like this, you can fall, I guess is the analogy. And yeah. I know I'm going on a gruesome take here, but it never left me, you know. And what was her background? I mean, it's like my circumstances here are well, they're actually quite convenient. I'm from Los Angeles. I had no ever desire to get into writing screenplays. It just was something that I was compelled to do. I think, and furthermore, I wasn't compelled necessarily just to write screenplays. I started out writing poetry, and I just wanted to write. You know, I think that that's pretty much the healthiest
mode in which anyone starts writing anything. You know, they're writers. They want to write, and then when they identify, oh, I want to do a screenplay. Oh, I want to write a screenplay. Then it's like, oh, great, go ahead, write a screenplay. You know, I don't think your first screenplay is likely to probably get you anywhere, but if you keep writing screenplays, you will learn. And once you start to learn, you will hit a screenplay that'll will turn some heads. You know, that isn't uncommon. That isn't a fantasy, because it happens. It happens pretty much every day. That is not a fantasy. What is a fantasy is if you come out here with one screenplay and you're going to knock it out the park and you think that that's all you need to do, because that ain't happening.